Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Country Club Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Leo McMahon. Today, our guest is Joe Roux, the general manager of the Woodlands Club in Falmouth, Maine. Joe is a CMAA member and a PGA member, which is rather unique. And he's also a CCM certified CMAA member. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Leo. How are you?
I'm very good, and thanks for coming on this morning.
Glad to be here.
So, Joe, we were just talking before we hit the record button. Can you describe to everybody what a CCM certified CMAA member is?
Basically, when I started the CMA program in 2008, you go through some education earning credits, kind of like I consider it like my master's in this field. You can get your CCE or your MCM, which gets into your doctorate if you want to put it in that perspective. So a lot of education, had to do BMIs 1, 2, and 3. Had to take a very lengthy CCM course, test, I should say, which I did back in 2019 and passed. So big celebratory for me, which was great as a PGA member to do something like that. And it opened the door for me to look at other job opportunities. It's a great thing to have on your resume.
So you mentioned the BMI schools or program. Could you discuss that a little bit for our listeners?
Yeah, sure. So, 2008, when I went to my first BMI, which was business management one in Atlanta, Georgia. Sorry. And it was funny when I was the director of golf at the Fountains Country Club, and the general manager at the time, Mr. Leslie Karen, asked me if I ever considered getting to the club side of it. So he sent me to BMI one to just get educated, but to learn a little bit. Fell in love with it. And when I got back from Georgia, I said, okay, what are my next steps? And he's like, well, we're going to send you to BMI 2. And that's was out in California. Great experience there at Cal Poly. There for about a week. Most of these programs are for about a week long. You do take a test at the end. Great working with other fellow assistant general managers, club managers, GMs that are going through the program. Great way to network as well. And then so after that, I went to BMI 3, which is at Michigan State. Did that because I was not in the hospitality side as far as a hospitality degree, but being a PGA member, I didn't have to do the PGA. They do a session on golf management, which I didn't have to do that, but I did have to go to food and beverage, which at that time I went to University of Las Vegas and did that for a week there, which was also a great experience. Especially when part of your homework assignment was to go hang out at the restaurants on the strip and experience some really cool food.
Tough homework assignment.
Exactly.
So what you just said there, I think was incredible for you. You said this gentleman, Leslie Karen,
Yes. Yeah.
he encouraged you to go to your first BMI.
Yeah, no, it was great. He's, his attitude, he's like, Joe, you're running a 54-hole facility. And funny, the story was I just got done completing our men's member guests, and we had one of the largest at the time. We shut the whole place down. So it was about 360 golfers. And we would after that one event that we ran very successfully, he looked at me and goes, what more do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing, Mr. Karen. He goes, well, why don't you look about the club side? It's not just about the golf, it's food and beverage, it's capital, strategic planning, pool information, which I really had no knowledge about, how to operate a swimming pool. So it was just really great for him to push me into that direction, which I completely appreciate.
Very lucky to have somebody like
Yeah.
him, and you took him up on it and
Yeah,
went with it,
absolutely.
which was also good on your part.
Yep.
Uh, so you are one of those unique individuals who was a PGA member, then became a CMAA member.
Yep.
Uh, can you tell us about the first time you hit a golf ball?
So I was 6 years old, 7 years old. My dad started me in the game. I'll never forget. I'm left-handed, and so was my dad. But back then, so you're talking mid late 70s, getting left-handed equipment was very difficult. So He taught me right-handed. I started taking lessons with Johnny Mills, who's a well-known teacher in the New England area, and then he was down at Doral down in Florida. So that's when I first started to play. Then as a kid, I would play at Valhalla Golf Club up here in Cumberland. So give you a little background. I grew up here in Maine. I grew up in a town called Yarmouth, which is about 10 minutes from where I work. So it's kind of a great story for me because I've circled back to my home state and my hometown. So the club I'm working at here, the Woodlands Club, I actually have members I went to high school with, which is kind of
Wow,
yeah.
wow.
So, but yeah, love the game of golf. Very passionate about it. But taking this extra step to learn the club side of it, it's just I get just excited running a dinner dance than I do running a member guest.
Great. That's great. So, did you play high school golf?
I did. I played for Yarmouth High School up here. Not golf up here in Maine is well, it's changed a little bit, but golf up here in the fall is that's typically when we would play. We wouldn't play in the springtime. So very cold a lot of times. We went to states two times my junior and senior year, and we're teeing off in 35-degree weather, and ugh, don't miss that. And
You
then
know,
I
you,
played 2 years at University of Southern Maine as well before I moved down to Florida.
you just reminded me of a story. I went to the States in high school in New York State,
Yeah.
and we had our state championship at Buffalo one year,
Oh,
and it snowed. It snowed in
oh, I
Buffalo.
believe it. I believe
And
it.
that was June.
Yeah.
But anyway, so did you win any tournaments or anything as a junior golfer, or you just loved the game?
I love the game, but I finished second and third in Western Maine Conference. So we had a Western Maine, the southern part of the state of Maine had our own individual tournaments there. Didn't win anything, but finished in the top five a bunch of times. Did win one very small collegiate event for the University of Southern Maine. Just a couple of small colleges in the area that we played. Just unfortunately, it was only a 1 day tournament because you really can't to try to get 3 days in a row in October is good luck with that. So, but it's fun. I enjoy playing. For me right now, I'll still play in some pro-ams with some members when they need me. But it's really just it's a great way to spend time with the membership out on the golf course, have a lot of fun. They're great here. They've been great at my other two properties too. They leave Joe alone, let him play golf and enjoy the 4 hours while we're out there, which is awesome. So.
So you go to college, you play some golf there. What'd you get your degree in college?
I actually didn't. It's great, interesting story. So I didn't finish my degree. I actually was a major in business. And the story with that, Leo, is I think it was my 94. I was taking some time off, and my teacher at the time in golf, Tim Angis, asked me if I ever thought about getting in the golf business. And I said, I'll tell you what, let me at least work at the golf shop this summer and which I did. And it's a place, Riverside Golf Course, which is a city-owned course in Portland, Maine. It's learned how to get up at 4 in the morning because you got to schedule tee times for that weekend, and you got to be there at 4:30 in the morning. So that was an education for me. But I loved the camaraderie. I loved that side of hospitality. And being around golf. So I went to him and I said, I think you've got me hooked, but what do I do next? And he said, well, we got to get you out of the snow, so let's get you down to Florida. So I went down to the Fountains Country Club and actually just worked there for a winter in the bag room to work on my game because he told me, one things I have to do is pass the player's abilities test if I wanted to go into this program. So went down there, worked on my game. Funny
So
story.
let me cut you off. Let me cut you off there for a second, Joe.
Yeah,
So there's another case of a Tim Andres. It sounds
and just
like
yep.
he helped you. He helped you out.
Yeah, he definitely he pushed me in that direction, and so I spent a winter down there, came back up, and passed my player's abilities test, and had a decision to make if I wanted to go in this program, and I decided to. So I took away from college and went into this route. Fell in love with it, and then went back down to the fountains for another season, just going back and forth. And then the director of golf there, by the name of Mike Nedrow, came to me and said, "Hey, would you consider staying here year round? We'll help you with your GPTP program from the PGA because that was the program I was under." And I thought about it and said, "Sure," and got married because the deal was, if she was going to come down to Florida, we had to get married. So we got married in '97 and moved down to Florida and
So let me
stayed
let
there.
me jump in for a second.
Yeah.
So if you could describe to everybody the Fountains Country Club, because I think it needs to be described.
So let's see. So the Fountains Country Club was one of the, I guess you could call it like the old school clubs in Palm Beach County. It was built in the late 60s, early 70s, has 54 holes of golf, gated community that had 19 separate communities. Um, and before I got down there, it was probably one of the larger properties there, and then everything continued to grow. Um, at the time when I got there, it was probably about 1,600 memberships. I'll never forget. I drove first time down there, Leo. I drove down to the club, parked my car, and I saw the clubhouse. And I'm walking around by the cart barn, and I'm looking at this gigantic Butler building. And I looked at my friend Jeff Martin, who actually came down with me at the time, and I said, "Jeff, I don't get it. Why is the maintenance building so close to the clubhouse?" And then I realized it was the bag room. And then I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to be schlepping 2,000 bags here." And, I think one of the neat things for me, my first year being down in Florida, was to call my father. And Thanksgiving Day, we had just done like almost 700 rounds of golf. And, just something from some little kid up in Maine, never experiencing this before. I'm like, what did I get myself into? So, but a great experience. The Fountains was a unique club. A lot of memories there. I can tell you, for me, they believed in hiring within. So, my story, if you looked at my resume, I was there for over 16 years. Went from assistant golf pro to head golf pro. Then became the director of golf in 2003, which that was an experience for me because now I'm a merchandiser, I'm a business owner, something, a neat experience challenge for me. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, in 2008, the general manager at the time got me into the club side of it, and got part of the CMAA. And then in 2013, I became their assistant general manager. Still focused a lot on the golf, but I had a really good team that was under me, so I was very appreciative of that. So it allowed me to spend more time on the club side of it, not so much on the golf side.
So the Fountains, I lived near the Fountains, and I always got the impression it was a very busy place. And obviously, listening to you, my impression was correct.
Yes.
What was it like trying to control all that or manage all that?
Um, there was challenges. I think for us, I had a very strong team behind me. You had your good days, you had your bad days. But when it came from the golf side of it, they were very regimented in their ways. So tee times were from 8 o'clock to 9:30, front and back tee times, two golf courses, and 8 o'clock straight through. Very organized there. I think where it got a little chaotic, like down in the background, outside operations, all it took was one or two people calling out sick, and next thing you know, you're running around with your head cut off because it's ladies' day on a Tuesday, and you've got 120 ladies that you got to take care of to get them out at an 8:45 shotgun. So but everybody hunkered down, got it taken care of. When I moved over to the golf side, I mean to the club side, I'm sorry. Um, you know, running a golf tournament down there was extremely important. However, running a dinner dance, I could tell you if we didn't wow them as soon as they stepped first foot in that door in the lobby, the rest of the night was a disaster. So it was just right from the get go. And golf, you had a little bit, you could fudge it over here, something over here, but dinner dances, those types of social events, that's one thing I learned when I first got more on that side of it. It just, you had to cross your T's and dot your I's. A lot of planning on a lot of events ahead of time, making sure everybody's on the same page on how to execute and things like that.
Yeah, so I came up the same route you did. I went from a golf professional to a club manager, and I could never get over the teamwork
Yeah.
in a kitchen and the teamwork between the front of the house and the back of the house. It was an incredible feeling. You know, amazing energy, and you had to work with each other or to get the job done. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and for me, when I got more on the club side, became the AGM, got more heavily involved with the food and beverage. And it's not just the food and beverage, but it's every team. I try to do everything I can to recognize just, how awesome our team is. I could tell you every dinner dance, I would bring the team out. And yeah, sometimes they would start dancing with the members, but they loved it. And, just appreciate how hard they work, because it's hard. But I can tell you, when my team nails an event, it's just such a great feeling, and it's something that I make sure that they know. And sometimes you get in the weeds and you figure it out, and then after the event gets done, you sit back and say, okay, why did we get in the weeds and how do we correct it so it doesn't happen again? But yeah, it's fun. Some of my members will come to me and say, I don't know how you do this. I'm like, oh, call me crazy, but it's something I just love to do.
You know what? It helped me learn working with the other departments besides golf. The ego-driven dictator has no chance.
No, no, that's so true. That's so true.
Uh,
And
for me,
I
I had to learn. I had to learn, to know people, and
yeah,
become their friends, and they became my friends.
right, right. No, it's
Sorry to
true.
cut you off. Go ahead.
No, and I think for at least for me too, when I moved over and spent a lot more time in the food and beverage side, like, that's not where my path started, so yeah, I understand, cooking techniques and all the ins and outs of what you need to do, but I have to trust my staff as well and to let them do that. And sometimes I see people where they begin to dictate or micromanage, and next thing you know, the team, it becomes challenging to get that team to want to work for you anymore, um, so I don't know. It's just if I knew everything, I probably wouldn't be in this business. I'd be Jeff Bezos and Amazon or something. But that's just not how I work. So,
Right, right. So, how was it dealing with the board at the fountains?
um, the at the very beginning wasn't bad, and then they started to get a little too involved with the operations. We had a big board too, which I was not a big fan of. We had 16 board members. That was a lot. And sometimes it was challenging, whether I was the AGM and Mr. Karen being the GM, trying to keep them on task, thinking more strategically, not so much about the operation. I can tell you, these last two properties where I am currently, and one in Baltimore, they were very hands off, made things a lot easier. They were focusing more on the
Interesting.
strategy for the club, not worrying about a color of a dinner napkin. So it made it a little bit hectic there. Um, the last couple years, it was different. So in 2015, the Fountains decided to go with a management company. So my last 2 years there, I was actually working for Kemper Sports. Um, that made it a little bit easier because now the board they couldn't focus so much on the operation. They had to really focus with Kemper Sports and what they were going to be doing for the club down the road. Um, Made it a little bit easier for me too, because I was reporting to Kemper Sports as far as what I needed to do for the operation. But that was a little bit of a shift when that happened in 2015.
What did you learn from working for Kemper Sports as a general manager?
Um, there was a lot of things. Very, their SOP procedures. That's something we really implemented there at the fountains. checklists. At first I kind of rolled my eyes at it, but you know what? It helps. Simple checklists for the bag room, closing procedures, opening procedures, checklists for front of the house as far as, all your work, your stuff that you have to get done is done. Even just for me as a general manager, my checklist on what I needed to get done on a day to day. You know, Here at the Woodlands, we're going through a lot right now strategically, and I just want to make sure I'm not dropping the ball. So I'm doing to-do lists every day, checklists every day to make sure I'm crossing that off before I bring my briefcase home, which I try not to do. That's one of the biggest goals for me with my family work-life balance is to try not bring that briefcase home. So get that checklist going and get this all taken care of. So yeah.
So that's interesting. There's a book called The Checklist Manifesto, and it was written by a surgeon. I think he's from Harvard,
Yeah.
and he basically explained the importance of checklists.
Right, right.
Even the best can make a mistake because
Yep.
they forgot a simple task.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
So you mentioned work-life balance. Explain your family, and then
So,
how you go
yeah,
ahead.
so I have wife and three kids. Little bit of a challenge. So, when I left the Fountains, I took a job in Baltimore at Sparrows Point Country Club in 2017. Um, so we were obviously still living in West Palm Beach. But at the time when I took the job, my oldest, Phoebe, was graduating high school. So we were not going to make
Wow.
that move, right? So I moved up to Baltimore for the first year, and uh, would commute down to Florida. The board was just awesome. They understood it completely. So once a month, I would go down for
Wow.
the weekend. Um, and one of the reasons why I took the job is they were in the process, they were actually eliminating 9 holes of golf at their property, going to develop, and then that influx of capital was going to help kind of revitalize the property. It was dated. They needed a new irrigation system, revitalize the clubhouse. So I looked at this as a project that would be something that I would really like to be a part of. Um, Unfortunately, because of politics and whatever, the development still hasn't happened. And here it is in 2024. So there was a couple years where I commuted down to Florida just because as I had said to the board, I really don't want to move my family up here until I know this project's going to take place. Um, so, uh, so I did that for a little bit, and then we decided, we looked at our kids and said, we've always wanted to move back to Maine. We're both, my wife and I are from Maine. All of our families in New England and in southern Maine. So we decided, let's make the jump. And so we moved back to, like I mentioned at the beginning, in my hometown of Yarmouth. Um, and it's been great. My kids go to school where I went to school. My son's AP physics teacher is the same AP physics teacher I had when I was in school. So when it comes to work-life balance, I do everything I can to keep my stuff at work. There's certain times where I may have to work from home, but I try to do everything here. I look at my schedule, and there's certain days that I got to stay here through dinner rush because it's Friday night, and that's when you want to that's when you stick around. Sundays I try to take off because that's family day. Matter of fact, we just celebrated Mother's Day, and yesterday I trusted my team to do their job, and I took the family down to go watch a Red Sox game. So it's things like that. My son Graham's a senior at Yarmouth High School, so he's the starting catcher for the baseball team. So, today I'm gonna go catch him play a game against Freeport for about 45 minutes, and then I'm gonna race back to my finance meeting. So try
Nice.
to balance that way. And
So
then,
so
yeah.
you were lucky to get that job in Baltimore, then get a job in Maine. That was pretty.
Well, I took some when I moved up to Maine. I decided to take a little bit of time off, just to decompress, and make the move up to Maine. And you know what? I actually spent 6 months, helped a friend reopen a restaurant that was shut down because of COVID. Just kept me busy, and did that for a short stretch. And then this opportunity came up, and just very I'm on cloud nine still, Leo, because this is A property that growing up, I watched it get built. Always said, someday I'm going to be a member of the club at the Woodlands, and now I'm the general manager here. So it's kind of great.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. So what I'm hearing, it's basically a common theme in most GM stories. It's not a straight line to your current position. It's a
Right.
lot of ups and downs, ins and outs, uh, being very you persevere, and you
Yeah.
keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward.
And you have the educational background behind you and the certifications behind you to be able to do that a
Yeah.
little more easier than most people,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I mean, yes, I think what's also challenging too is like for us, you know, wanting to relocate to like Southern Maine has always been was always a dream for us, but it was a challenge because if you
Okay.
look at Southern Maine, um, there's three properties, maybe four properties that would make sense that I would, want to pursue. It's not like Palm
Right.
Beach, it's not like Palm Beach County where every time you turn, oh, look, there's another country club,
Right. Right. Right.
so it made it challenging. But so again, when this opportunity popped up, it's been a home run for us, which is great.
So now you're back up in Maine. How long is the season? One of the members there.
So we can start playing golf middle of April. We were actually supposed to open the golf course first week of April. Unfortunately, Mother Nature, we had a very mild winter this year. But then March 23rd, we had a very significant ice storm. As a matter of fact, we have so at our property, we have 18 holes of golf. We have an indoor pool, outdoor pool. We have outdoor rackets, but we also have indoor rackets. We have one of those athletic bubbles that
Okay.
encloses five of our racket courts. Unfortunately, the ice storm was too much, and the bubble collapsed. So, so we're in the process of dealing with that right now. But season will run till we'll continue playing golf until we actually close the golf course down the Sunday before Thanksgiving. But then we have simulator rooms, so that keeps our golfers very busy.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll
Nice.
do starting January, we'll do winter leagues, and that'll go straight until golf season kicks back up in April. So
Wow.
yeah.
So how many do you do for dinner on a Friday night in January?
We'll do just about 100. We don't shut down, partly because with the indoor rackets and the indoor pool with the kids, we do a lot of swim programs for the kiddos here, so it's great. They get done their classes after school and they stay here for dinner. But yeah, typically we'll be just between 75 to 100 covers on a Friday, and then that'll pick up in the summer months.
So it's a 12-month operation then.
Yeah, yeah, we don't shut down. We don't shut down.
Wow.
Full fitness center. So, and I think that's one thing that's unique about the Woodlands too, being in Southern Maine is we're really a year-round property in Southern Maine, which is kind of unique. And
Right, right.
yeah.
So Joe, who are the three most or were the three most influential people in your life
Ooh. Let's see. Influential three.
that had the most
Well,
impact on your life?
I would say one would be Leslie Caron, the general manager at the Fountains. He's the one that got me in this, put me in this direction. Saw something in me that I would, think that I could be a good general manager at a country club. He would definitely be one. My mom, without a doubt, she's been my biggest supporter. As things can get stressful in the country club world and stuff like that. And mom's always been there for me. As she would always say, "Don't worry about it, Joe. This will soon pass," and you just move on to the next day, and off you go. But she's just an awesome person. She did a lot with my dad. My dad battled MS for a long period of time, and she took care of him from home. An awesome person. Um, really, other than that, it's really not much else. My mom, I mean, you know, big fan of Jack Nicklaus. Loved what he did in the '86 Masters. Every time we watched the Masters in Maine, we knew golf season was going to happen.
Right.
You
So
know,
give me one word to describe your mother.
she's an angel.
Very good. And give me one word to describe Leslie Caron.
Uh, hmm. Leslie Caron. He was, God, he was just resilient.
Resilient.
Yeah.
So for your mother, I'm gonna use the word support because you use that word. And then for Leslie Caron will put resilient. So those are
There you
those are
go.
two pretty good words for a leader to follow, you know. Be
Yeah.
supportive and be resilient.
Yeah.
Uh so I'm interested to hear this. What advice, because you came up through the from the bottom to the top,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to a 21-year-old, starting out in the club industry?
Um, you know, it's not easy, but you know what? It takes a lot of work. Trust your team. Um, you know, and I can tell you, get to know your members. I think that's the biggest thing. I'll see some people, the period of time at the fountains and in Baltimore, I'll see some young whippersnappers come in here and they probably have more education backgrounds and food and beverage backgrounds and hospitality backgrounds than I do. But if you don't get to know your members, they could care less. And they could care less of what your resume looks like. But if you don't treat them with a smile, even if you're having a bad day, don't show it, and that's hard to do. But get to know your members. That's the biggest thing I try to tell all my staff, even my young employees that are high school students that they come in here part-time and they're shy to get to know the member. I said they're not going to bite. They get to know who they are. They want to get to know you. It just makes that experience a lot better in the club world.
That's a great point. Get to know your members. Uh, like for me, I consider myself a pretty nice person, but it's hard interacting with hundreds of people every day. It's not easy.
It's
You
not
have to
easy.
put yourself out there.
Yep.
Did you find the same
Oh,
struggle at first?
yeah, when I first started, oh my God, I was scared.
Right,
Especially my first time walking around dinner service. I'm like, here's the golf pro walking around doing dinner service, and I'm like, how's your meal? And it's like, oh God.
right, right.
But
Yeah, I had a boss. He would tell me, "Look, you could still be Leo,
right.
but you got to be more outgoing."
Yeah. I think one of the challenges for me too was especially the first stretch working in the food and beverage, it's when you had that one-off bad service and I'm looking at the expo line and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, Mrs. Blum's, it's taken a half an hour to get her salmon. What the heck's going on? And now I've got to go up there and it's like, oh, and doing that for your first time was very nerve-wracking. But you get through it, and they'd rather see you as the leader take your lumps and apologize, move forward, and go from there, but don't walk away from it. But yeah, it's hard. Here, um, it's funny, when I was at the fountains, I had 1,500 members, but when I was an assistant pro, I was working in the computer doing, plugging in their account number to put their tee time in. So, Mr. Tapper's 17565, Mr. Donsky's 10878. So it's just been etched in my head. I got away from that. So now it's like, what's your name?
Right. I went through the exact same thing. The exact same thing.
Right. I mean, I used to wow the members at the fountains. They'd go back up to New York. They'd come back in the fall and I'd be like, "Hi, Mrs. Braslow, account number 2430." Yeah, sure, we'll see
Right, right.
you.
Right. I went through the exact same thing that you went through.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I thought I was losing my memory, but it was just a different setting, and it
Yeah,
was easy to remember names in the golf part of it.
yeah.
It
There's
wasn't
no
so
doubt.
easy
And here
moving
at the
away from it.
Woodlands, here at the Woodlands, it's it's different here too because we're a top country club, and here they all want to be called by their first name, and I still am challenged with that, and I'll never forget, I'm interviewing and we take a break and I'm having lunch with the president, and one of our top servers walks up to him and said, "Hey Chris, how you doing? You want your usual?" And I'm just like, he just called the president by his first name, and I'm just like, this is weird. And I get here and I'm sitting with our director of golf, Jan Merkin, and I go, Jan, do you do you do this? And he's just like, yeah. He goes, I hate it too. And he came from Baltusrol, and it's just like, you know, so and I think it's harder to remember their first name than it is their last name. Is it Bob, Bill? So
Right. I tell you what, I had the exact same experience that you did though with the names. It's
yeah,
funny. I wish I would have talked to you before this. But you reminded me of one story about dealing with people.
yeah,
It was one of my first Friday nights at a club, and it was packed.
yeah,
And this one guy grabs me, and he's upset about the room that he's having dinner in. He wasn't in the main room because
right.
we were jam packed, right? So I said, I apologize. There's nothing you can do about it, And he's screaming at me, And I feel like about an inch tall. And this is my one of my first weekends there.
Yeah, right.
And and then 15 minutes later, now I'm in the main dining room, and a woman, can I speak to you for a second? I go, oh man, not another one. And she goes, I see the way you interact with the older members here, and you remind me of Jesus Christ.
That's awesome.
So I went from the worst general
Right,
manager in the
right.
world, Christ, in 5 minutes.
That's great. That's
Oh
awesome.
boy. And it turns out the guy who gave me the hard time my first week, he became one of my best friends after a
Oh,
while,
oh, I love it.
But so where is Leslie Caron today anyway?
He's retired. He's up in the Orlando Clearwater Beach area, I believe now. So I haven't we touch base here and there. But yeah, he after he left for the Fountains, he went up to Orlando, worked at a couple of properties up there, but now he's happily retired and he's having a blast.
And do any of your kids play golf?
My son is the only one that tries to. He's now getting hooked on it. I never, it's one thing I never pushed on him. Yeah, he would come to the golf course and hit golf balls with me here and there. His passion's baseball, loves baseball. Um, but since he's been up here in Yarmouth, a lot of his baseball player buddies play golf, so he's getting back into it. He's got a lot of natural athletic ability. It's funny, he would play golf with me here and there. And then we played in the Yarmouth Alumni Golf Tournament last year. And of course, he won the long drive contest. So now he thinks he's a scratch golfer. So now he's, Dad, I need a new set of clubs. I need this. And I'm just like, whoa, slow down for a second here. Let's get you back on the golf course here in the driving range. So, but he does enjoy playing. And it's great. It's great for he and I. Um, we'll sneak out here and walk 9 holes. And it's good bonding for myself and my son, which is good.
Is he right-handed or left-handed?
He is right-handed. Yeah, he is
Oh,
right-handed.
good, good,
So
good, good.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, so your wife, I'm thinking, must be amazing because I'm just thinking about being the general manager at the Fountains tires me out. So your wife must be a pretty incredible person to put up with you all these years.
She is. She put up with a lot. There's a lot of stresses there. I'll never forget my first year as the director of golf. Transitioning into that, and boom, what happens right before season starts? We get hit with Hurricane Francis and Jean in the Palm Beach County area, and it just, it delayed everything. And then the next year, my really my second year as the director of golf and merchandiser, and boom, we got hit with Hurricane Wilma, and it was just constant. And then yes, the lovely stresses at the fountains, and she was right there by my side. She still is. Just it's awesome. So very very fortunate.
That's great. That's excellent. Uh, I'm trying to think of anything else, but we just breezed through this. But the fountains would had to be a tough spot because they were struggling for a number of years.
Yeah,
And
so they basically they were struggling the last part, probably from 2011, 12 on, it started to become a challenge there. They had, excuse me, we had mandatory membership, which one of the communities took on, took them to court,
that's
and
right.
the
That's
club
right.
lost. And then they went to appeal, and I was already out of there at the time. I was in Baltimore, but from what I understood, they lost the appeal, and then they ended up, I believe, they sold the property to Concert Golf, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And I think Concert did the same thing with Indian Springs down in Boynton. Um, so yeah, so they've been. I still stay in contact. I still have a couple of my buddies that are still work there. God bless them, and they're happy. Everything's changed in the right direction for them. Members seem happy, so that's good, But they're now. It's now, from what I understand, it's not 54 holes. It's 36 holes.
Right. Right. And it seemed to me like the fountains was at the cutting edge of a lot of things in the wrong way. They went through some tough times,
They did. They
but
did.
they helped other clubs learn.
Well, yeah, I would agree with you, and I think some of the challenges there, my last few years there, um, they had to make some tough decisions, and unfortunately, they didn't make those tough decisions. And when it
Right.
came to, I hate to use the word assessment, everybody does, but there were some times where that's what they should have done, and they didn't. And it just created more issues, more issues. And by not doing that, their infrastructure continued to fall apart. And didn't allow the property to enhance the amenities that were there. So if the member's not seeing the value there, they're not going to buy a home there. They're going to go somewhere else down the road. Even if that property down there could be possibly twice as much, they're going to see more value at that property than where it was at the fountain. So, and I think there was a few of the board members that saw that vision, or saw that, tried to get to the majority of the board and the membership to change in that direction. It just was a challenge for them to do.
Right.
Yeah,
It seems like the bottom line is you have to keep investing in your infrastructure or you have no chance.
they have no chance. And that's one thing we're dealing with now here at the Woodlands. It's in the positive, they get it. We actually have changed their model here, where it did not used to be a break-even budget here. We now have a monthly capital fee that covers all our deferred maintenance. Something they haven't done here before. But by doing that, we now set our initiation fees and other things for aspirational things for enhancements here for the property. As we try to explain to the members here, you're not going to be wowed by a new heat pump, but you could be wowed by a new splash pad for the swimming pool area, and we're going in the right direction with this property here. As I said to the membership and to the board, I watched this place get built in 1988. Nothing's changed here for the clubhouse. It's time for a change, so now we're going in the right direction to be able to do that, which is exciting here. It really is. So it's a little bit of a shock for them. I mean, and I don't mean to say it that way, because up here they've never done anything like this before, like a long range capital plan, which is what we're going to be presenting to the membership. Um, but they know it's the right thing to do. It's something that they've never done before. So it'll be interesting this summer when we present it.
And they're lucky to have you there because you've experienced what not to do with the fountains. You
Yeah.
you you saw the end result when you try to
Yep.
save a few dollars by
Yep.
not investing in your infrastructure,
Correct. Correct.
and then the importance of doing it, and you'll have a nice result.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wonder why it's so hard to get into a member's head. Look, you have to invest in your infrastructure. It might cost you a few more dollars, but in the long run, we'll be much better off. We'll have a lot of members here all the time to help defray to keep
Yeah.
your membership costs down, you know?
Well, and I think what it is too is, we had Club Benchmarky come in, Chris Barron, who's our New England rep up here, did a fantastic job. And, basically real simple. You all own this, so at your house, if your water heater crapped out, are you just going to keep putting duct tape on it, or are you going to replace the water heater? Well, you're going to replace the water heater. This is your property. These are your assets. And, you've got heat pumps and things like that that are 15 years old that need to be replaced. We can't put duct tape on it anymore. So I think that was a great message for them to share with our membership, and they get it. I think again, it's looking at some aspirational things that we want to do here. Again, we want to continue as a 12-month property in Southern Maine, and what are some of the new things that we can do here to enhance the experiences that we already have here.
Well, this has been great, Joe.
Yes,
I don't want to take up any more of your time because I see people walking in those windows back
that's
there. So you
okay.
got a little bit of activity.
It's all good.
Are you closed on Mondays or open on Mondays?
We're closed on Mondays. We do have a couple of Monday outings. I think that's one thing too that we've done. We've given back to the membership. We used to run a ton of golf outings here. We've actually cut that in half. We started looking at the bottom line, what that really net came out. So we've taken those Mondays that we would normally run a golf outing, and now we open it for regular play after 12 o'clock for our members.
Nice,
And
nice.
yeah, something to give back. Same thing with our catering functions. We've cut that down to we just looked at the numbers, and we don't want to be a catering hall. It tires my staff out, and then when you really look at the net bottom line, it just doesn't make sense to do as many of them. So we got the finance committee on board with that, and the board on with as well. So it's my staff loves it. So it's just we focus on the membership. That's our biggest thing.
Two good moves, it sounds like. Well, thank you, Joe, for your time. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Have a great season up there in Maine.
And listen, if you get up to Maine, Leo, I'll treat you to a lobster and some golf.
I'm leaving tomorrow.
Okay. It may snow. Just give you a heads up.
Thank you, Joe, and have a great season.
You too. Take care, Leo. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.